Are you ready? Today's episode is brought to you by guidedhypnotic.com. That's guidedhypnotic.com. Are you feeling stressed out, riddled with anxiety and other non-resourceful emotions? Then go to guidedhypnotic.com and download your free guided hypnotic meditation. So, Mike Myles is the founder and CEO of Active Marketing, a marketing agency servicing the behavioral healthcare industry, and the active CEO of ProGrowth, an affordable lead generation and marketing agency for startups and early-stage businesses. In addition, Mike also acts as CEO and CTO for Marketing Optimizer, an SaaS marketing and lead management platform for small businesses. Mike is passionate about creating new businesses and helping guide them as they grow into a place where they are sustainable and scalable. ActiveMarketing.com. So, holy crap, brother! It's been a minute since we've seen each other. I always look forward to going to the events, the conferences where we originally met to hang with you and connect with you and Carrie Poe and Desmond and everybody. What have you been up to?
Man, well, we haven't been to events in a while.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't look like we're going to go to any event soon. Hopefully end of the year, Active Marketing will be back and I'll go with. We've been working on the business. I've been focusing on being a family man mostly.
Beautiful.
So that's what I've been doing.
You have 3 children?
I have 3 children. I have a 14-year-old girl, a 12-year-old girl, and a 6-year-old girl. So it's busy.
Yes. Yeah. We have one 5-year-old, and I can't imagine having 3 girls. Although ours has, like yours, I'm sure, multiple personalities anyway. So you have, I'm sure, a bunch of conversations going on.
Yeah. All the time. A lot of different personalities. And, I've really enjoyed being home with my wife and my kids. And I've really spent maybe the last 2 years just focusing on family.
Beautiful.
I mean, I've been working pretty hard.
Yeah.
If you ask them, I work all the time, but I could work so much more. I just prefer to be with my family as much as I can.
So prior to the, like we're dating this broadcast, prior to COVID, were you working from home already? Was that something that was, that wasn't a big transformation for you?
Not at all. No, I had already been, I'm in and out of the office. I have, with Active Marketing, which kind of leads everything that I do professionally. We have an office and everyone is remote, because they all want to be remote. And they have the option to come into the office. And I stopped kind of forcing people to come into the office on principle a few years ago, where it was like, no, we work better if we're all here. And what ended up happening is they all appreciated it and still came into the office.
Interesting.
Because they just wanted to be around each other. But now they didn't have to be.
Ah, yes. It's interesting how sometimes that happens when it's a choice. We make better ones sometimes. When it's mandatory, we resist.
Yeah. And so at any given time, not post-COVID.
Oh, you froze. Let's see, are you still... Where are you here? Hopefully you will make your way back. Let's see what's going on here on Facebook. Bobby? To do some edits. Ah, there you are. Yep. Okay. This may have been contiguous, so we'll see here.
I think it was. I think I was still on, just ho-humming awkwardly.
Yeah, it happens.
Just trying to narrate my confusion.
Well, so we apologize for that, and welcome back. What did I miss?
To be honest with you, not much.
Okay.
It was just me talking. So nothing terribly important.
It wasn't profound. You didn't
No,
solve the world's problems in the last 20 seconds.
no, we didn't get there yet.
Oh, yeah, we still have time. Don't worry. Yes. So I know we were talking about your thing, how you've pivoted, I guess, the way you've worked, and that you made it optional to come in. And then when it was optional, they did. Obviously, now it's a little bit different. But as we backtrack a little bit, I'd love to get even how you got into marketing specifically for the recovery field, because that is a unique animal. But I do want to acknowledge one of the things that I loved about you before I even met you. I always saw you and Desmond, and for those, Desmond White is your, I guess, your partner in there. You always wore these, like, you looked kind of like you branded. You had the gray suits, a white shirt, and the red bow tie, and always knew where you guys were. And you just had this really cool vibe about you guys. Like every conference I went to before we got to know each other, it's like, man, those guys are badass. Look at them. You just can always tell they have such class, such style. Then we ended up meeting at that Access one, I believe, right? Was that the first one we ended up connecting? And hung with you guys, and I was like, man, you guys are brilliant. You guys are focused. You have great hearts. Like, you're in it for the right reasons, and just connected with you as humans. But I just want to acknowledge your branding prowess extends past your internet marketing and so forth, that you get the whole package.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Yeah. Meeting you at Access was pretty great. We hit it off right away. And I think that was the first Access that I had been to. I mean, we're looking at a few years back. And within a few hours of meeting you, we sat down, and remember there's that lunch workshop, and we wrote the vision statements. Yeah. And I actually used the vision statement that we wrote there verbatim, like we back of the napkin, actually, right? And I actually used that we worked on together for.
Do you still
years.
have the napkin?
I don't. I know that I transcribed it shortly thereafter.
That would have been funny if you had it mounted.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid not. But we use that, and so in that way, you kind of indelibly left a mark on active marketing.
I'm like a fungus.
Right off the bat. So that was great. So I got into the addiction treatment market totally by accident. First of all, let's go back to how I named the business. I named the business Active because when I formed the business, yellow pages were a thing. And I wanted to come up at the top of the list. And I didn't want to be A1 or Aardvark or something dumb like that. So I chose Active Internet Marketing. I thought it was a good acronym. Yeah. And we've since dropped the internet because we do a lot of brand work and a lot of print work now. So we're just Active Marketing now. But back then it was Active Internet.
AIM.
Marketing. Yeah, AIM, exactly. And people called us AIM for a long time. But then we got confused with AOL Instant Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
And there was no chance of me ever getting the domain name. So that was always depressing. So I got a call from a guy who owned a bad car loans website network for people with bad credit, and they wanted to get a car loan. He owned a network of websites. And so he hired me, and I worked for him through the yellow pages. And turns out that he was had a pretty serious problem with substance abuse, and one of his best friends was that he used to party with and spend time with, went through treatment and started his own treatment center. And so that guy referred me to his friend, who was now, I don't know how many years sober, but he was doing very well. He owned a treatment center. And that was my first, he was my first whale, my first big account. And it was my first account in addiction treatment. And what ended up happening was, people that worked for that account, he grew to several hundred beds, and people would leave his organization and go to other organizations and take me with them. Well, back then it was really just like me and a couple of assistants, and then it became me and a staff over time. But next thing you know, I'm not doing any sales, right? There's no prospecting at all on my end for the agency at all, much to my own detriment. And there was no real marketing going on. I had never been to a conference. I'd never done anything other than Yellow Book or the Yellow Pages. And those were even starting to kind of be like, what's the point anymore with the internet? And next thing you know, all of my clients, because of this word of mouth, were addiction treatment. And I started to realize that I kind of love it because the people in the addiction treatment industry are different. They're not the same. There is a humility kind of built in because everyone, it used to be the case. It's not anymore. Now you have, hedge funds in the business,
right, yeah.
and people who have no direct link or emotional link to the industry. But when I first started, everyone in the industry was in recovery. Everyone.
Yeah.
And people who are in recovery, from my point of view, not being in recovery, are sometimes a lot more down to earth. They've got more therapy than most people ever do.
Yeah.
Right? They've done more introspection and more taken a real look at who they are than most people, than the average population ever would. And there's also this humility that's built in with like, yes, I used to have this behavior and I don't anymore, but there was something about me that I didn't like, and I will admit it.
Well, and also what I found is that people who were successful enough in their addiction to need treatment, meaning they got really good at getting their access to their drug of choice and all of that, are, some of the most creative, focus-driven people that when they take that energy and they put it towards something really good, they can help so many more people because they've got already success formulas built in, that creativity, that compassion, that understanding, that ability to communicate. And generally, for the most part, because we're all human, have a desire to help and make a big difference. So beautiful.
And so I fell in love with that. We're not selling TVs, right? It's not like we're just selling things that, it's not shoes, right? We're actually selling something that is, and even selling it, when I say the word sales in the addiction treatment context, it almost doesn't feel right. But the services that we are communicating to the market, right, which is the fundamental purpose of marketing, is just to take the message to the market. It's life or death, right? So some people might not ever find a treatment center that was right for them if not for the work that active marketing does, right? I know there are other agencies that can do it, but we are doing it, and I feel like it's a good thing.
Well, and you got into it what year?
Well, I think we took our first addiction treatment client in 2004.
Wow. Okay. So, and you started out, you're in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Was that where the center was? And then you expanded from there?
Yep. We were I'm still in Northern Michigan, so it started in Southern Michigan, but now we don't have any clients in Michigan. All of our clients are in California and Florida and Colorado, none in Michigan. Michigan has horrible insurance, so it's impossible.
So interesting. That's some of these questions for some maybe a little, we'll get into the weeds a little bit around addiction. And for some that, I don't want to warn people, but kind of code alert that there may be some questions that people didn't understand, but I think it's instructive and helpful that people really get how complex the treatment field is and how, really well-meaning people may have created some problems in marketing, how things are languaged, how things are promoted. Because like you said, there are a lot of people who may not have known or were ready to get treatment. And how do you get those people who are contemplative, like, oh, maybe I need help, maybe I don't. And then things got really complex in the last 5 years or so when Google started getting involved, the government started getting involved, the bad actors started getting, sort of called out. So when was the first time that you noticed like, there's going to be some regulation, and how did you pivot when perhaps some of the old ways of doing business started getting challenged?
Yeah. So the big switch was for me in my head when I started going to conferences, and the first conference that I went to, I was invited by James Gordon, who used to work for a Medivance billing company. They're long gone, but he became a close friend of mine. And I realized when I got to the conference that a good portion of the profits that some treatment owners were making was lab money. They were kickbacks from labs for referring their lab business to the lab, right? So people come into treatment, and I'll just kind of explain this for people who might not know. People who are seeking treatment would arrive at treatment, and during the treatment process, we'll have to take urine analysis, drug screenings. And the companies that do the drug screenings get paid by the insurance companies for those drug screenings. And the treatment center is not allowed to be paid by, they can't get a commission for the prescription of these drug screenings because it's a healthcare test, right? But what was actually happening in many cases was that the lab companies were paying basically commissions to the treatment centers for the referral of their drug screening services to this company. Well, it was really big money. And that when I saw how much money that was, it wasn't even the ethics of, they shouldn't refer to this company and get a kickback. It wasn't the ethics that really astounded me, because I know that people are unethical in every industry. There's always people who will sacrifice ethics for money. What I knew was going to cause a change was the amount of money that the insurance companies were paying for a simple drug screening. When I saw that some people were getting thousands of dollars, some organizations were getting a couple $1,000 for a urine test, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. So that's when I really was like, okay, things are definitely going to change. And when that happens, I realized that some of the money that people were spending in marketing was coming from that. Right? That's where, right? So that was creating more margin for the treatment centers. And
there were some treatment centers that would invest like upwards of $1 million per month in marketing.
Yes.
Which is obviously a huge investment. And if that was being supported by the UA process, you could tell that would certainly have an impact.
Absolutely. Right. It's because advertising is essentially an auction. You buy ad spots wherever they are. And when there's more demand, the price goes up. Well, when you have a company that can afford to spend $1 million a month and still make a huge profit after they spend the $1 million, well, the cost of advertising across the board goes up, and some of the smaller players just did not have the ability to compete in that market.
Well, and not to go too down the rabbit hole in that conversation, the ability for treatment centers to make that kind of money, that's what created a lot of the bad actors, because then, especially in Florida, where there's very little regulation, which was beautiful because it helped get people help, right away. If someone had a heart, they could, boom, let's open up a center, let's open a halfway house. But then addiction shows up in many ways. Next thing you know, you've got a halfway house starting out, good intentions. Hey, I know you don't have any money, your insurance company, we don't take insurance, your family doesn't have any money. Tell you what, just give us 2 UAs a week and, we'll let you live here for free. They're making a couple $1,000 a week, justifying, again, well-meaning at the time. And the next thing you know, they're making, some large, bits of income. And then that becomes their new normal, new addiction, which is unfortunate because it did implode on itself. And
it did.
Yeah. And I was working in the industry at that time in South Florida, in Delray Beach, sort of at the epicenter of all of that. Now, we were a good, we were always on the up and up. We didn't do any of the brokering or any of that, but because of our location and because of all of that, there's a lot of assumptions that can be made. And I'm sure for you, what kind of assumptions did maybe people come around for you around the idea of marketing for the treatment world?
Oh, well, I mean, I can tell you a story about when Carrie, my wife, was in a breakout session at a conference, and there was a speaker who specifically called her out because, for no other reason than she is a marketer and there should be no marketing in addiction treatment. People should actually go to treatment centers, show up and tour the facility, and that's the way that they should find treatment. Now, obviously that's ridiculous because
how would you know where to even find a treatment center?
Right. Where would you go? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't even know that a treatment center existed if it wasn't for marketing.
Right.
You'd have to drive by it, I guess. But they couldn't have a sign because where do you draw the line, right?
Right, because
people think that because we work on the branding work, the most common misconception is that branding is just a logo.
Right.
But nobody thinks that it's an unethical practice. And when we get into the print work, nobody thinks print work is an unethical practice. But once we get into the digital stuff, when you start to talk about if you advertise on social, then there's a privacy and moral privacy issue that is always a tough conversation. And if you go with organic search, well, there's this kind of thought that everyone in that industry is in some way going to try to, swindle you, right?
Right.
But that's not addiction treatment. That's just that's all industries. That regardless of the industry, people tend to have this thought that those of us who are in the business of helping you gain organic search traffic, that we are not capable of doing it, and we know it, and we're still taking money, which isn't the case. We do know what to do, and it works. But there's there's definitely a thought process out there. Not as much anymore, but it's still there.
So how did you deal with, because that happens in two ways, because then when Congress got involved and changed the sort of the rulings of predatory marketing, that, once someone with addiction got labeled as disabled, now you're running the risk of predatory marketing to people who are suffering from mental challenges and their decision-making process. How did you navigate that? Because that, I know when I was I was running the marketing for Palm, or parts of it, it became a whole new conversation on how you even approach people at this, because it's like, we're offering help. How can we not appear predatory if we're offering someone who needs help, who's diagnosed disabled because they need the help?
So I focused on two things. I focused on the legal exposure to my clients, and I took the advice of their counsel if they had one, or and I took the advice of my counsel, which would be secondary, because if I'm working on their business, it's their counsel that needs to make the decisions. And I did what I felt was right. I don't care what Congress thinks. I mean, right?
No, of course, but it's more of like the
exposure.
legal. Yeah, I mean, that's really
That's
where that came from. I was just sharing the motivation behind some of the rulings.
So for me, I didn't, so Congress would come out with these laws, but then they're not, I don't even think that they actually passed many laws, right? They had a lot of conversations, and there was a lot of conversations, and some things were done, but rarely enforced and never fully understood, and which is kind of the way of it.
Well, where it got ugly was when Google followed suit.
Yeah. So you have to do what Google says if you want to be on Google, right? So, and now Google has this certification process through a company called LegitScript, which was the biggest windfall ever for that little company.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, now they got Facebook too. It's just an amazing win for them. Kudos. But the process for getting certified by Google is extensive. And we've helped some clients through that. But
is that a separate business that you have, like another vertical in there, or is it part of if they're a client and need it, that you help them get it? I mean, I guess they need it in order for you to do the work anyway.
Yeah. So we don't do much paid search work anymore,
right.
but we will pretty regularly help our clients. It's just through active marketing. It's not that it's something that we, put together a formal process for internally and productized separately. It's just something that our clients need, and we know how to get through the process and know what communication, because we've been through it a few times. And so it's something that we offer to them. And honestly, my partner has taken the reins on that all the time. And it's just something that we help them with. It's not something where we would say, we're absolute experts in this. But most people come in not knowing anything. And so at least we can point them in the right direction and help them through the process. But there's a lot of paperwork involved.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know whether I don't know if that's made much of a difference in the industry. To be honest with you, when I look at the people who are advertising now, it's different companies, different websites, but it's the same people. Right?
Well, was it easier for them to maybe start over rather than to go back and then get compliant? Because I know some of the issues were compliance issues, again, all regulations. So they, rather than going into with a fine tooth comb to go through all of their old websites to make sure that they were compliant, it's let's just build a new one so we don't have those little things that slip through the cracks.
Yeah. Well, it was, so these people mostly owned treatment centers anyways.
Right.
So they had a treatment center, and then they had a website that was just for lead gen. And they would take this website that was just for lead gen, and they would drive traffic to it through Google's paid ads. Well, then Google said, okay, you can't do that. You have to be LegitScript certified, and we will not certify one of these lead generation websites. So they said, okay, fine. I'll just advertise my treatment center, and any of the extra leads that I get for my treatment center, I'll just refer out quid pro quo treatment center that I have a great relationship. I mean, the quid pro quo is clearly not stated in any formal way,
of course,
but they just refer out and fill up their treatment center then.
To be fair, again, it goes back to well-meaning people. If someone needs help and we can't help them, let's find someone who can. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I agree with you completely.
So there's there's such gray areas around it. And I will say, coming from first music industry, then personal development, I had no idea how different this industry was from any other industry, how unique it is, how it has, while it is a very small industry, and everybody sort of knows each other, it is a very unique language, unique process. Dealing with mental health issues and the complexities of all of that is incredible. And it's not an easy thing. And one thing that I also really appreciate about you and what you do and how you deliver is that you are a branding agency, a marketing agency, not a commodities dealer. So meaning you're not just creating, tons of calls, you're creating qualified calls, you're creating an identity so people build a relationship with the treatment center, which probably served you tremendously when all this happened, because there were probably a lot of people going, oh no, our old strategy wasn't working. Now we need your level of expertise to, create that brand market.
Yeah, that's really what happened. Is it became so much more difficult, and there were more laws passed that just made it so that people couldn't do some of the things that they were doing. Many of them not unethical, in my opinion.
Right.
But illegal nonetheless. And I it's debatable either way. And I don't, I think I'm like you, Doug, where it's like, if you're going to save somebody's life, all the rest is just details.
So as an example, one of the ways that we had done some business with Palm is we would write articles and so forth on Suboxone and that kind of thing. And there was some, gray area where we would have, like people looking for Suboxone doctors, like we would provide that. And one of the guys who ended up working for me for years and still to this day is great friends. He's like, that's how I found the treatment center. Was I was looking for a Suboxone doctor. I ended up talking to one of the marketers, and we did this. If we couldn't give you the opportunity to come to check out treatment, we would provide a Suboxone resource. But first step is question, there are other options here. And And he said, if it wasn't for that, he goes, I'd be dead, because that was the call that I decided that I'd give treatment a try. And then he ended up working for the treatments and working for us and working, and he's doing amazing. That now it would be an illegal practice.
Right. So you have to just kind of think, I'm not the kind of person who thinks that you do something wrong.
Right. So we don't, I don't work there anymore, but
right. But there are nuances to all of it that some of them, okay, you shouldn't do it. Some of them, it's like, well, it's really in like referrals. The referring to people, whether you refer to someone only because they're going to refer back to you, or did you refer to them because that's the best choice for the patient? That is all in the heart of the person doing the referring.
Right.
And you can't legislate that. So in any case, that has been, the regulations have been a big change. The other really big change in addiction treatment was the ADA. Obamacare.
Right.
Yeah, the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, not the Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
The Affordable Care Act.
Right.
Yeah. So now everybody's going in network.
Well, so it's very interesting how some of your clients, were they out of network that it was a game changer, I'm sure. Were they able to get in network, or?
Most of our clients are trying to get in network. It used to be that all of our clients were out of network.
Yeah. Well, those are the ones who they had more budget, because they had a whole different, structure.
Now they're kind of thinking, well, better to have a full facility and take a little bit less. And so they're going in network.
And how's
pretty
that
much across the board?
Yeah. Is that part of the marketing strategy as well? Like, is there a benefit to you when they go in network as far as how you promote and what language you can use? Does that change anything?
Not really. No, it's still all the same. We still try to, we try to talk about what makes that treatment center better and different.
Mm-hmm.
not just say the same things that everybody else says, because then it's a commodity again, right? If you say, oh, well, we've got customized care. Yeah, well, so does everybody else, right? So we still are just trying to promote the things that make a company different, and kind of just plant our flag on that. And go ahead.
Well, I say, how do you, being that you're specializing in the treatment world, I imagine, because I know I got some pushback on this from some people, was that you market for competitors. So how do you navigate that when people are like, well, they already do it for, like, I see it as a benefit. I see it as, man, like, my attitude is, well, you're figuring it out. You already know all the ins and outs, and you're going to help everybody across the board. How do you approach, or do you get that pushback anymore?
We don't get that pushback very often, because most people, well, you have the choice, right? You can go with somebody who doesn't work in the treatment industry, and then you have to teach them everything, and they still would be less than beginner level.
Yep.
And they wouldn't be working for any of your competition. So you can check that off the list. Or you could have someone who is working for a treatment center that you might consider your competition. They might actually be your competition, but we know about the industry so well. We know more about the industry than half of our clients do.
Yep.
Now, there's the other half of our clients who are absolute experts, and we don't claim to be experts in anything clinical. But when it comes to the running of a treatment business, we don't really need our clients to teach us. They just need to tell us what levels of care they provide, where they are, what insurance they take, whether it's in network or out of network, just kind of the basics. And then we don't need to know anything more from a nuts and bolts perspective. And then we can get into things like, okay, what makes you different? You do yoga, but how much yoga? You have music therapy, but is that really your focus? Right? And then we get to find things that make them a little bit different, which is hard to do when, everything is paid for by line items on an insurance claim.
Right. Of course. So when you're doing an onboarding, what kind of questions are you looking for that create the niche, as it were, what separates each treatment center? How do you go through that? Do you have like an avatar building conversation?
Yeah. So we actually, in the onboarding, we get into some of that, and it normally comes out just through conversation. We'll ask the questions like, what levels of care do you provide? And they'll say, okay, well, detox, res, PHP, IOP, OP, and they'll go through the list of whatever they provide. And, they'll say, okay, well, we only serve women, or we have an executive program. We ask about the modalities that they use, and then we talk about it. We just have a conversation with them about it, and learn. It's learning more about the heart of the business than it is about the logistics of the business, right? Like you may have a Reiki practitioner on staff, but is that really what you're about, right? Is that the direction that you want to go? Or maybe you have a physical fitness component, and for some centers, the physical fitness component is what it's all about, right? That's their thing. For others, they have a gym, but it's not what they're all about. So we have to have a conversation with them about, what really makes you tick, what fires you up, where do you want the business, how do you want to be known?
It makes me think of it's an obscure reference I'm going to make right now. Wet Hot American Summer, 10 years later. Did you see it? So
I have not seen it, but I'm aware of the movie.
Of the movie, yeah. So great movie, and then they did a prequel and a sequel. So but anyway, at one point she makes a comment about how they're selling, she's selling the camp because all of these new camps are coming out, but they're specific. There's the gymnastic camps, the space camp, the photography camp, the ice, all of these, kind of niche camps. Are you finding that more and more in treatment, that organizations are finding it even more important to niche down in something like that, like the music, the workout, the, you know, the Reiki, all of the woo-woo-y kind of approaches. And then insurance plays a huge role in that, especially if you go in network. So then how are they, you know, like able to promote yet also deliver based on insurance requirements?
So I like it so much when organizations do niche like that, that maybe I see them more than I see other treatment centers. But, you know, it's kind of like when as soon as you buy a car, you realize that they're all over the road.
Right.
But you never noticed one until then.
Yep.
It might be kind of like that. I think in general, there are not enough treatment centers that really say we're a photography treatment center.
Right.
I mean, we actually had a client that was a golf treatment center.
There you
go. Their thing was golf. You come in and you know, and there are some that are marijuana based now, that where you come in and the whole thing is just built around the cannabis culture.
Well, we're having next week Dr. Barry from Recovery Unplugged, which is music, right? And they are hardcore music into it. Like I've been to some of their events that they have, and it's music centric. Not that they don't do the other work, but that is a huge thing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's better for everyone. It's better for their business and for those people who that's a good fit for. If that's a good fit for you, then it's perfect. Then you should go. And if it's not a good fit, then don't. But there's plenty of people who that's a fit for.
Right. Well, how often do you have that happen as well? Like I when I'm doing business consulting or working with entrepreneurs and that kind of thing, it's a little pet peeve of mine when I go to a networking event and someone will be like, "Oh, what do you do?" And, you know, and be like, "Oh, real estate." Okay. Who's your ideal client? Like, who do you, anybody, you know, they're looking for a house. I'm like, okay, so now I don't know who to send to you because I can't send you everybody because I have friends, I have investors, they want a certain thing. I have, you know, first-time buyer friends, and I have like people who want luxury. And I know you want the luxury, but I'll tell you what, if you don't specialize in the luxury, they ain't going with you. You know, investors are going to want an investor-friendly real estate agent, not, you know, so so it's just, how many times do you sometimes have that where the treatment center is like, "Whoa, we'll take your money. So we cover everything."
Most of the time.
Okay.
Most of the time. And so then I kind of have to talk them down off their own ledge. Right. But at the same time, not be condescending, but it's like, okay, so everyone, all right, well, who has the most success? Okay, if you could pick somebody and just bring that person in, who would it be? Or sometimes you just have to say, okay, well, you can't be for everyone because then you're for no one, right? And the biggest pushback that I get is, well, we don't want to turn anyone away. Because they're all struggling. There are more beds than there are patients to fill them.
So this is so interesting when you say that, and you probably have a great read on this because you're not coming from a clinical perspective. This is actual just looking at the getting them in.
Yeah.
There are more people that need it than there are beds.
But they're not shopping for it, and they don't have insurance.
Got it. So
if you take the people who are in active addiction or need help, if you take that group of people that could benefit from treatment, and then you take out everyone that doesn't have the means to pay, and you take out all the people who aren't looking anyways, they don't even want help.
Yeah. What
you're left with is a group of people that is far smaller than the number of beds that are available.
Interesting. So how do you then navigate because like in fairness, I've seen people, for lack of a better word, almost advertising free treatment, which gets the phone to ring. But then, you know, it becomes a vetting process. So do you have, obviously I know the way you work, so you don't do stuff like that. I know we've had these conversations about the, commodity versus branding and so forth. But what can we do, or what do you see people doing for those people who don't have insurance? And do you have any clients that take Medicaid or Medicare or any of that, but then they're probably not making a whole lot of money to be able to afford marketing? It's like catch-22.
Yeah. So they don't, if they're taking Medicare and Medicaid, if they're any like federal money, they don't need us. They're full.
Okay. Fair enough.
They're full. So we don't have much that we can do for them. I mean, if you already have a waiting list, you don't need to waste money on marketing that you could invest in clinical services.
Right.
I guess maybe you'd want to take that money and expand. I guess that would be the best thing that you could do. But when you talk about people who don't have any means at all, sometimes you'll have some organizations scholarship them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty rare. I mean, it's not rare that an organization, that a treatment center would scholarship someone, but it's pretty rare that they would. It's pretty rare when you look at the total population. It's a small portion.
Well, it's not sustainable as well. Back to, we always had scholarships going on. And we also scholarshiped a lot of days. I think, we averaged, it was like 200 to 300 days a year of scholarship days that, we would, if someone was being, their insurance ran out or whatever, we'd let them stay for another week or two or what have you, so that, we're not, because insurance said that you're better doesn't mean that we believe you are. So
right.
We'll keep you on. And we had, it was several hundred days a year that we had on that. But yeah, it was always tough because it's still a business. And that's what's so unfortunate, that there's a negative association. Like a regular doctor doesn't get, admonished because they have a nice car and a nice house and so forth, a heart doctor, right? But you see a treatment center and they helping people worse off than someone who has a heart challenge is much more challenging work anyway, not to minimize or diminish the work of a heart doctor, but it's apples and oranges. So it's not really a fair comparison, but it's like, oh, that jerk, look at all the money they're making.
Yeah.
I was like, well, they're helping, hundreds, if not thousands of people a year and saving lives on a regular basis and putting a huge risk up. It's unfortunate that, the whole industry gets a bad name, and they're bad actors and not, there are people just like any industry. But it's unfortunate that the whole industry has such a stigma, and people who struggle with addiction are stigmatized.
I think that's the bigger issue, because most people don't know about treatment centers, right? If I talk to my family or my friends, they don't know if that treatment is dirty or clean or, noble.
I guess when Megyn Kelly did that story or whatever, that was the first time that there was some exposure to it. And then, of course, the only exposure is, that's what that's like. Okay. Oh, it's just like what I thought about the treatment, people who struggle with addiction in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. So the real problem is the stigma on the people who are suffering from substance use disorder. And it is real. Like, it is a big deal. People are, and honestly, they should be afraid that if they come forward and say, okay, I actually need some professional help. I got prescribed pills however long ago and got addicted immediately. My doctor did not warn me or provide me with any plan to help me out of this. Now I have to go find somebody to get some help. I'm going to get a professional that knows how to help me with this. If you do that, you should be afraid, because people are going to call you a junkie. They are going to think that not everybody, some people will be very supportive, but there are going to be people out there that will admonish you and attack, and you have to be prepared.
Well, and right now, the first thing, and I'm sure you're already experiencing some of this and utilizing some of the opportunity to help. As soon as COVID and that started, Heidi and I were both like, ooh, this is going to be interesting for people who are stuck at home, perfect storm. There are people who, you know, maybe they had a moderate drinking challenge, but now they could drink during the day. Now all of a sudden, no, there's, you know, then now you have abusive. So we were like, you know, like obviously domestic abuse, child abuse, relapses, addiction, all of that is going to go through the roof. And we're starting to see it. And it was really disturbing, and still is how little attention is being put on that. And no preparation, no opportunities for advice, no resources given. And it's, you know, it's really sad because I guess, you know, that doesn't sell news yet. You know, we have other stuff that is going to be, you know, more valuable. So more valuable to the news agencies. So for you, what have you found in opportunity to expose people to opportunities to get help based on this new? Have you seen an uptick? Right, because I think rehab.com, you know, Tim Ryan and Jennifer Jimenez, do you know them?
I don't.
I'll introduce you to them. But they're part of rehabs.com, and they said it was like a 250% increase in inquiries.
Yeah, that is surprising to hear because the overall search traffic and search volume and it has been trending down and is still kind of below the level where it would be. We're seeing that traffic is still arriving at many websites, and the traffic is now kind of as COVID kind of slows down and the lockdowns kind of unlock a little bit. We're starting to see the traffic come back up, and but with the traffic going down, also phone calls went down.
Right.
And I mean, the research that we've done has shown that it has not been great for most treatment centers. When it actually comes to getting people to come into treatment, they've been scared.
And also, wasn't there some that based on staffing and then requirements, social distancing, et cetera, that they couldn't handle as much as they would like?
Yeah. And so what we saw was a lot of, only the outpatient offerings going telehealth.
Right.
And so that some organizations were quick to move on that. Some were already poised to really make a push. They already had all the infrastructure in place, right, and just needed kind of a kick in the pants to actually get after it. But
so for you, for the telehealth, was that helpful? Meaning, as an opportunity that you could get direct treatment a lot quicker than having to go through, you know, all the different processes necessary.
Yeah. I think it's like remote work. I think people want it.
Yeah.
Right. Some people will want to come in and sit in a group, probably not during a pandemic. Right. But regardless of if there's laws that prevent it or not, most people aren't going to want to be around a bunch of strangers. So, and I think going forward, you know, they relaxed all the laws for telehealth across the board, all of healthcare.
Right.
And if they would listen to me, they would not take that ability away. They would allow healthcare organizations to continue to see people virtually.
That's going to be really interesting to see in efficacy over time, because the pendulum always swings, right? And there's it's easier to phone something in, literally.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one thing when you're going in and you have the potential testing, or you could see the person and, something doesn't look right, and, you know, kind of really get them on, you know, a conversation and maybe help them. But the next thing you know, oh no, the internet's gone down. Oh, you know, and the next thing you know, so it'll be interesting to see. And we're in a brave new world. All of this is so interesting because so many businesses are literally phoning it in. This technology we're using right now, you know, I used to do this. I used to have people come in when I was at the treatment at Palm. We had a studio, and we would do a 3-camera shot, and we would have people come and do the interviews in person, which was limiting because we had to have the person available. So when they come speak at the center or, you know, local people, but this is certainly expanded, and it still allows for a different, it's different.
Yeah.
and we're conditioning people for it, for good or for bad.
Well, I think, showing up in person where your provider can look at you, see the color of your skin, look at, actually examine your physical person, that's better. I don't think there's any question that is a better healthcare outcome is going to come from being in person. But maybe it's not always required.
Agreed. Oh no, I'm not suggesting not to have it. I'm suggesting that there's a hybrid.
Yeah,
right? Like
I'm with you.
Yeah, we do seminars, like Heidi and I, that's what we were speakers. We held events. We have firewalks and glass walks and arrow breaking incorporated into all of it. And there's, interactions that occur. And then you come and you hang out and you do our hybrid group calls and all of that, which is a great mix. But without the live interaction, it's kind of, like at the end of the day, which is better, having sex or watching it? I tend to go for the having it.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. So
having experienced both.
Right. And so it's one of those things like, man, out of the, so many things, what's so interesting about people, and I know you experience this in marketing, everyone's looking for the quickest, easiest, least expensive way to get things done. And oftentimes that does not yield the best results. As a matter of fact, probably most of the time, it does not yield the best results.
That's right.
And there's the challenge. Therein lies a challenge. I'm sure you have that conversation with your clients when they go, well, let's do it this way. And that doing it that way costs like half as much. And you're like, yeah, but it gets a quarter of the results. So now you're actually losing all ways around. Yeah. But then they're like, yeah, but it's half the money.
We deal with that all the time with people who say, oh, well, I can get the same thing for $100. Well, on paper, when they describe the service, we'll create a brochure for you, right? $100. Or you go to the print shop. I can get my print shop to do a brochure. Well, yeah, you can. And you'll end up with the trifold, and we might provide you with the trifold too. But the difference is pretty significant in the design and in the messaging. Like it's pretty significant. If you were to hold them up to almost any layperson, you could see the difference, and it would be very clear which one is superior. But people tend to shop for everything like it's a commodity.
Right.
Like, oh, well, a car is a car. I can get it. Why would I pay $50,000 for a car when I can get one right over here for $20,000?
Yeah.
Same car. They're both cars. Same thing.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, quality versus quantity versus all of that, now that the industry has shifted so much in, like live events, the conferences where we met, like I love going to them and speaking at them and all of that. How has that changed some of the approaches that you run?
Oh, well, it has changed completely. So instead of now using networking in the kind of traditional old school sense where you go up and shake hands, which now we're going to be bumping elbows or fist bumps. I don't know. I still want to shake hands, so it's going to be tough for me.
So it's kind of a tangent. Have you had that? Like, how locked down are you? So are you able to go out much?
Yeah, we're able to go out now.
Great.
Yeah.
So the first time that we started going out, we were in Florida, so it's been pretty lax anyway. But then when we started holding like tonight, we have a networking event. Tonight is our first live networking event, and then Thursday another one. Be interested, see, hopefully we get a nice group of people, but it's that thing where when I first, and it's still like, I usually hug you. Do I get a hug, a handshake, fist bump, elbow bump, foot kick? Like there's that awkward moment where you're like, what's going on? And it's interesting. It's an interesting, bit of experience. The other thing with the masks outside, like there's no smiles. So now you got to smile with your eyes. You've got to kind of put in your sensory acuity and kind of sort of address like, okay, is that a smile? Like, okay, good. Like it's just so weird.
Do you think you're going to see people winking a lot more?
Probably, yeah.
Because I'm at the grocery store and, you know.
Yeah, but then you get, now it's sexual harassment.
Oh, right. Because that would be sexual. Of course, anybody can be harassed, I suppose. But, and so people will like say, excuse me, and I'll gladly get out of the way, or I'll just wait and they'll be, you know, and they can't see me smile.
Right.
So as far as they're concerned, I'm mean mugging them. I'm just staring them down because it's like blank with just eyes looking at them. They don't realize that I'm smiling. I got a big smile underneath that black mask, but yeah.
So
I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, well,
I don't know what to do about it. It's weird. It's amazing how much body language it matters.
Well, and micro expressions actually do, like just seeing a little movement, a little quiver, a little anything is so valuable. And, you know, to have to recalibrate now is such an interesting challenge, especially if someone's wearing glasses as well. So now you don't have any seeing, even if their lips are changing color or, you know, all of the things that, you know, we consciously or other than consciously are aware of and use as our communication repertoire. Very curious. Again, I digress. So we were talking about live events and the pivoting and so forth.
So so I actually started a business called ProGrowth during the pandemic, specifically so that we could reach people, well, not just for the companies that I'm involved with, but just kind of in general. If you wanted to start up a business during the pandemic and how would you take it to market? How would you even do it? If you had a professional service, if you're a plumber and you want to start offering plumbing services, how do you even do it? And so I thought that was probably the most important thing to try to solve and not just during the pandemic, especially during the pandemic, but what startups and small businesses need are customers.
Right.
They don't, before they go, unless they're well funded, building a brand is out of the question. Right. So what you need are customers and you need conversation. So we've really focused on that, and we're using we're trying to use direct cold outreach to try to network on LinkedIn. So reach out to people and say, hey, I'm in the treatment industry. You're in the treatment industry. Let's connect. Maybe we can have a phone call. I do marketing. What do you do? Okay, great. If I have anything coming up, I'll shoot you a message. If you have anything coming up, let me know, and do that. And but do that a lot, right? You can't just do that once or twice. You got to do it a lot, because there are people that you don't know what they're doing. They may say that they're clinical director for a treatment center, but on the side, they have another. They're consulting with another treatment center that needs a marketer, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of the same for any industry. And so that's what we've really been doing, is trying to, how do you, when you're networking, it's, unless you're introduced to someone by someone, it's all cold outreach. When I first started going to events, I was walking up to strangers over and over and over again, because it's a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Mike. I work for Active Marketing. What's up? How you doing? Tell me about your business. That's the in-person cold call.
Yeah.
Right? So they don't know me. They don't want to talk to me because they don't know I exist until I walk up and stick my hand out. Say, hey, I'm Mike.
Although at those events, you and Desmond stand out. You're looking very sharp. So like, let me go. Yeah, see what these guys are about. These are some sharp dressed men.
Well, we did try to brand ourselves so that even in person we were still branded. Right. The funny thing is, Doug, that bow tie, the first time I wore it to a small event in Costa Mesa. It was a lunch and learn that Addiction Professional was putting on. And I just wore that bow tie because I wore the bow, like that's just how I was dressing. I wanted to wear a bow tie because I thought it looked sharp. Yeah. I was like, this bow tie is awesome. I'll wear this bow tie. And I wear contacts, but I would frequently just wear glasses that, you know, as nerdy as possible, just because I like the way that they look, right? Yeah. It more accurately depicts who I am as a person. And I liked that. So many people commented on it that when I started doing events, the people started referring to me as the guy with the red bow tie. And so then we all wore red bow ties.
Yeah.
But it was really natural. It was just me being who I am. Now we don't do the bow ties because it's kind of a kid's thing now. The whole bow tie look has really become more youthful, as indicated, if nothing else, by Young Sheldon, the show on, I think, CBS.
Oh, he wears a bow tie?
Yeah, even the logo for the show is a bow tie.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
So we've backed off the bow tie a little bit. We haven't yet found the replacement for that.
So one of my bands that I worked with when I was in music is a band called the Two Skinny Jays.
Okay.
Check them out. Brilliant, brilliant band. Some of the best, one of the best live bands ever. And when I was in a band called Fat, we toured with them a bit, and our drummer was their drummer as well. So he played both shows. Okay. It's pretty nuts. But the point I'm getting at is every tour they did, they would have a theme. So one year they all dressed up as Mork from Ork. Another year they dressed up as sailors. They all had different sailor outfits. And so each tour they did, they would sort of have a theme, like a new thing. So like that tour, you knew what that was. Just made me think of that with you. And you're like, oh, we're retiring the bow ties. We've got to come up with another identity that when we're, out doing things. Like as an example, it's like my shirts. Like I wear like kind of wild shirts. It's kind of my thing.
You're a Robert Graham fan.
I'm right. Yeah. So it's not there's anything wrong with it.
No, I love it.
But so everyone kind of would know me from my extravagant shirts and jackets and kind of rocker look. And I'm okay with that being consistent. I love that you guys are going, okay, cool. What would be another cool thing that would help us stand out, that would be unique, that also speaks to the fact that you do that, speaks to who you are as a brand expert and understanding marketing is more than just a website.
Yeah.
The consistency, the cohesiveness, your brand Bible, all of those things that most people don't even think about. The mission, vision, and value statement. Like, are you even living that? And I think that's, something where, if nothing else, if people are learning about you now, that they appreciate that about you, that you are the real deal, and pun intended.
Well, thanks for that. Most organizations don't really have a mission, vision, values. Very few have values like written somewhere. Almost none have their values actually written out, or their history. They don't, and so when new people come on board, the new people don't have an idea of what the business stands for or where they came from.
Yeah.
So I actually think that's pretty important, and that's a big part of a brand book. Because then you get the people who are working for you and representing your organization to be on the same page. They get it.
Yep.
They understand where you came from, what you're about, and where you're going. And
that's why you need to have raving fan clients and internal clients, your internal sales, your team, right? That's your internal customers. People forget that there's both, external customers who are reaching through one kind of marketing, but then there's internal. Like, what's a company newsletter but marketing to your internal customers?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. You have to keep morale up, and you have to keep everybody on the same page.
How have you noticed, has any of your company's clients, have they asked for help for internal marketing at all?
No. Sometimes we will get help with, I shouldn't just say no outright. Sometimes we'll be asked for help with sales consulting. Like, will you scrutinize these phone calls and give us some advice on how to better answer the phone calls? That's probably the number one thing that we'll get when it comes to communicating internally with an
Mhm.
organization. But most of the time, I mean, it's hard to even get an organization to do proper training for
Tell me about it.
their employees.
It's
So
it's so
yeah,
crazy because that's so vital. Like
yeah,
they forget their most valuable asset is their internal customers, is their team.
yeah,
And now more than ever, it's needs to be kicked up, and that those investments need to be in the people who've stuck it out, and they're not just holding on because they've got a job, but because they believe in the mission.
yeah. Agreed. Agreed. So overall, the pandemic has, for some people, it's been good,
Mm-hmm.
right? But not for most, I think. Not for
Yeah,
most.
unfortunately, I think we're going to see the curve that we flattened in our spread potentially, and again, that's how do you measure it compared to what? But then the inverse curve we're going to see going up the other way of challenges from all of this, whether it be mental health, substance. I hate to say it, suicides. Sadly, it sounds horrible, but I know less people who have even contracted COVID in my world than people who've died from overdoses or suicide.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who has contracted COVID. Not even one person, not professionally or personally. So, I mean,
yeah, and that's not to minimize the reality of it, because it's real for some, for sure.
yeah,
It's just an interesting perspective on how different areas, different people, and how they can't help but have some of their perspectives based on the reality that they're living. Right. Like you said earlier, like about treatment centers, like, the average person doesn't know a lot about treatment centers, but like the RAS shows up once you get into the treatment field. You're like, oh my gosh, there's so many treatment centers. Like, I didn't even realize how many there were. And like you're going to a town and like, oh, wow. So there's this whole other thing that influences our filters. And that is what you're doing in marketing as well, is helping people parse through that, create awareness, and do it in an ecological way such that they're able to appreciate where the opportunities are through. And I assume you do a lot of education marketing as well, if I recall correctly, when we were talking to you at one point about, like trying to get something in, and that was where some of the not negative feedback, but they're working with, some of our competitors. It was another consultant guy who was working in one division and didn't appreciate the whole perspective. But education marketing is vital.
I mean, if by that you mean educating the market on just, about mental health, about addiction, what to look for, what it is, what to expect. We do a lot of that. We've really moved away from most other kinds of content, and we spend most of our time working on building educational content, to position our clients as thought leaders, right? We want people to come to them for the answers. But we're also creating content that actually, puts some real information out there that we think that we as an agency can be proud of, and that our clients can be proud of. And so that's most of what we do, is we create that content and then we promote it. That's the bulk of what we do.
And how much of it is in video versus blogging versus white papers?
It's almost all not necessarily published in a blog, which is kind of chronologically listed. It's more a traditional page that is, and the content is a bit encyclopedic in that it's very comprehensive. It's typically, 3,000 or 4,000 words. We put video in, but we don't shoot the video. We embed videos that we think are relevant from like TED Talks or John Hopkins or MIT.
Yeah.
from experts in the field that are kind of bigger than us, bigger even than maybe some of the clinical staff for our clients, people who are already respected names, and we embed those videos in that support some of the things that we're saying. And we don't do like exclusively video content. Mm-hmm. Most of our clients don't have the ability to provide us with it,
right?
And they're not local to us. So the most cost-effective way is to just create a web page that looks really good and is engaging and well laid out and has media in it that for people to see. And it really is very, very well received. We're really, really proud of the content that we've been producing. We think that it really, it's really well received by the market, and it provides value, and it does good.
Beautiful. Have you noticed any trends in what people are searching? Did you notice any ebbs and flows in anything in regards to, is it like any particular style of service versus drug of choice versus like, I don't know, just curious.
Well, the trends have pretty much stayed the same aside from COVID, right? I mean, that is now the number one, the biggest search phrase of all time, right? Yeah. Is this COVID spike. But what we've seen over the last, we'll say medium term, like maybe the last 12 months, mm-hmm. and I think if we went back further than this, we would see that it's been building for years, is a trauma, mm-hmm. that is an anxiety. And then what kind of goes with that then is the major depression. And that's what we're seeing as pretty much everyone that's coming into treatment is arriving with a co-occurring disorder.
Right.
Almost everyone. We did a research project on the purchasing behavior of millennials seeking addiction treatment. And what we found was that, well, number one, millennials are a lot more willing to talk about their mental health than previous generations. And also that people are being diagnosed far more frequently and far more accurately with anxiety disorders and trauma. So much trauma and also major depression. Those are definitely the three big mental health challenges that people are facing along with their substance abuse.
Well, what's going to be really interesting is how much more trauma comes from COVID, because this was traumatic for so many people. It really is
traumatic.
Yeah.
People are scared.
And it's affecting them in so many different ways, triggering them in so many different ways. Like, it's just bringing up it's just such an interesting and sad thing to witness, because it's exciting some like dormant traumas or creating new ones. You know, like, I feel bad. Our daughter, and I'm sure your kids aren't thrilled with the whole mask thing. Like, all of a sudden, like, what is this? What do you mean? I can't, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, and creating, right. You know, whether you could argue whether it's healthy or not, right? Because on one level, kids, by all accounts, are the least susceptible. And, you know, do we create another trauma for them, create a mental, challenge based on being like, I don't know, like, I'm not a doctor. It's an interesting thing to examine, and to even more interesting to watch when either you or someone else has a question about it. Like, I'm just curious, like, and then like the attacks, because everyone is being traumatized and everyone's so on edge. So even just asking the question becomes offensive to someone who it goes against their survival mechanism.
Well, I think that you can see in the protests going on that everybody was already on edge.
Yeah.
Everyone was ready for something, right? And they got a good reason to go out there and do something. They were ready to leave the house. they were home anyways because they couldn't
could
go
be
back to
feeling
work.
financial stress and all that beyond. Like, so
That's
like,
right.
yeah, it's, I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah,
just the
exactly.
whether it's intentional or not, the gaslighting that has been occurring to an already excited situation is, you know, someone needs to be responsible about it. And unfortunately, the reciprocation, you know, not to go down a media rabbit hole, but it's, I don't care what news agency you follow, they all seem like they're having orgasms while they're delivering the crazy news. Like, it's just too exciting. Everything's breaking. Everything is just this crazy thing because no one is going to watch. And the level gets higher and higher. Like, I'm sure you've experienced this as well in marketing, right? You got to be as, I don't want to say salacious, but you want people to tune in. You want people to, you know, click, you know, dare I say clickbait, but you want something, a hook to get someone to tune in to, you know, to basically consume whatever education you're providing. And in marketing, you've got to, the headline has got to be, you know, kind of catchy enough that someone clicks on it to read the content. Well, the more that goes down that path, the more crazy you've got to put your content to stand out above everybody else. It becomes a competition. Who could be the most outrageous in the way they present something that someone's going to click, tune in, engage, or what have you. So again, whether it's intentional or not is a separate conversation. The reality is that it's happening, and it's creating an excitement of energies that is something we've never seen before. And I don't think anyone has, even if people say, well, back in the 60s or whatever, it's like, the information was not able to be spread as quickly. There was not an awareness level of instantaneous proportions.
Yeah. I mean, I'm inundated with videos of things happening in a way that even just a few years ago, I mean, you got to think, what was it? 12 years ago, there was no smartphone.
Yeah.
So
you had the Palm Pilot. That was like the smartest of the phones.
Right? If you wanted to video someone, you had to have a separate device.
Yeah.
So and I remember having one of those, and it wasn't small. And then they came out with the small ones, and that was great.
Oh, yeah, I have one of those. The flip. Was it the flip?
The flip. Yes. Yeah. So, and they were great.
Yeah.
For like a year until the smartphone came out. Right. Yeah. So
I think I got two of them.
Figures. They were great. They were great. And we had one too. So a flip. Yeah, that's exactly right. But now you get, if somebody does something, like during these protests that are all about police brutality, if the cops mess up, it's going on Reddit, right? It's going on Facebook. Everybody, I even see it on LinkedIn, which doesn't make any sense, but it goes everywhere immediately. So in a world like that, until we're going to know when things change, because we have a really good idea of how things are right now, not from CNN or Fox.
Well,
they're not telling us how it really is right now.
No. And the challenge with the information that's available at the rate that it's available, it requires a lot more personal responsibility in questioning, in doing your own due diligence, in going, okay, wait a minute, that's one point of view. You know, we only saw the like, as an example, remember Fight Club, the movie Fight Club?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
we're not supposed to talk about it, but you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah. Oh boy. We already broke the first 4 rules. When I saw the trailer, when the movie came out, I was like, I have no interest in seeing this. This movie looks stupid. Who cares about just people fighting and, you know, like, it just looks like people fighting. The trailer did not express to me at the time the complexity, the brilliance, the intensity of the movie. It just looked like a bunch of people fighting. Ergo
Yeah.
Fight Club. I was like, that's not interesting. When I saw the movie, I was blown away. I was like, holy crap, this is like unbelievable. And I feel like right now we've gotten so conditioned to headlines, to trailer watching. We don't get the full story at all, especially since no one would tune in if it said, person, was, and again, I'm not saying anyone was or wasn't appropriately, apprehended or whatever. I'm just saying it wouldn't get the news if it said, oh, so-and-so was apprehended for crime X. And, it was, then they'll be like, oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Right. But when you then see a trailer that says, oh, or you get this whole thing, oh, what's going on? And then make decisions on whether or not they're going to even dig deeper, whether or not you're going to watch the movie, like happened with Fight Club. And this is where it gets really interesting on the importance of personal responsibility and being willing to ask questions and dig deeper, because a lot of assumptions are made, just like people who struggle with addiction. A lot of assumptions are made about people who are in that situation, who do go to treatment, who say they need help. And that's because some really bad trailers were put out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that it's important that, and it's not happening enough, that people do their due diligence, that they figure out, if you see a clip of something happening and it's a 30-second clip, what happened the 10 minutes before? Right. So there are some cases where there's no justification for some behavior.
Absolutely.
But there are absolutely cases where it was manipulated and spun in a way that it tells a story that isn't the true story. And whether they're being absolutely factually incorrect, that they may be factually correct, but still deceptive in the messaging. So I think that it's important that we be pretty careful.
Yeah. And I would like to think, and part of this show is, consciously and other than consciously, the purpose of is to get people to get a deeper picture, look at people's sort of successes and see what it took to understand that, I know there are marketing companies that ended up going out of business because they were unable to pivot. They were unable to shift. Other people, they made adjustments and they said, as soon as it happened, boom, I had to make a decision and I started a new business. Yeah. Right. And there are going to be people, there are going to be haters out there who may go, oh, look, Mike with the ProGrowth and whatever, taking advantage of people, because why? Their model of the world is from that victimhood mentality, from that not digging deeper, instead of going, oh, well, wait a minute. Let me see, there's a pattern here. He's been helping people. He's been adjusting. He's been challenged in the past when industries were going out of business. I'm sure you had clients that went out of business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But you didn't give up. You found new ways to serve. You didn't get bogged down into going, oh, F the government, F Google, F everybody. You're like, okay, well, they're doing what they're doing. And I have two choices. I can make it mean they're out to get me, or I can make it mean they made a change and all I could do is adjust.
Well, we're all playing by the same rules and somebody's going to win.
Yeah.
Or many people will win. And some people will quit because they don't like the rules, right? Google said you have to have legit script. Some people will say, okay, well, I'm not going to do pay-per-click ever again then, because I shouldn't have to do that. Okay, somebody else is going to do it and they're going to get their message out.
Yeah.
And you won't. Not that way. Okay. Choices.
Right. And the consequences of those choices, I think, or where people start getting upset because, they don't like sometimes the idea that the equality is an opportunity, not an outcome.
Right.
And there's two different conversations right there. And
well, I think that comes down to, if bad things happen to you and you take ownership for them and you say, okay, I made the following mistakes and I know now that I know that I made the following mistakes that I own, which I did in my business. I made huge mistakes that cost a lot of money, cost jobs, and a lot of hardship. And they're mistakes that I made, and I won't make those mistakes again. But you get into trouble when you say, it wasn't my fault. The industry changed. or this client stiffed me. It's not my fault. I went out of business, or I'm struggling, and it has nothing to do with me. When you start to place blame outside of yourself, that, in my opinion, that's when you start to get in trouble.
Yep. And it's okay. And by the way, it's okay to not say place blame. It's not of a blame thing. Like, I look at my career, like the music industry, the peak of my career was when Napster came out.
Okay.
So the technology changed everything. Not only were sales changing because people could just share the music, right? Peer to peer.
Yeah.
But the way music was created, Pro Tools and digital recording changed everything. You didn't need to have a giant studio anymore. So studios were closing, record companies were closing, everything changed. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I feel like I've run my course. And I reevaluated and looked at what I got, what was the psycho remuneration that I got for the music. Cause I was making a lot of money at that point, but I was like, I would do this if it was for free. It's like, why would I do it for free? And I unpacked my personal gratification. So I go, yeah, the music industry changed and all that. And I made a decision at that point to change who I was, my relationship with it. And now I've pivoted. I help people make music of their lives, but I never resented, oh, that never should have happened. The music industry should have been the same way. And, I'm not like Uncle Ricky. Well, if I had won the big, that is such an interesting challenge that most people go through, is that decision when things happen that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
What we do with that information.
And things are always going to happen outside of our control.
Yeah. The only thing we can control is our relationship with what's outside our control.
Right. That's right. We can choose the decisions that we make and our behavior, what we do, but things will always be, bad things are always going to happen, but good things are going to happen too. It's just that we tend to look for the bad things. They're so much easier to see than the good things that happen.
Well, and there's a lot of secondary gains from that. And I was just thinking the other day, I was going to do a story on this, on how this is why I teach state management. Like, my primary program, Freedom Hack, is about state management. So as an example, have you ever been like really hungry and you go to the supermarket because you're on your way home, you have dinner, like you're on your way home for dinner, be like, I'm going to start at the supermarket. I got to pick up a couple things. How much more unnecessary stuff do you end up picking up when you're hungry? Because you're like, you get...
It's never the good stuff either.
Right, exactly. Right. So, and that's just a very generalized, simplified example, but oftentimes, depending on the state that we're in, is going to drastically influence the decisions and the actions we take. It's like going to a restaurant when you're starving and then you order, you eat all the bread, you get more bread and you get a huge meal. And then, midway through, you're like, oh my gosh, my eyes are bigger than my stomach. Well, yeah, because you showed up starving because you didn't eat today, and and again, simple version, but this happens into what we plug into our mind.
I've spent a lot of time over the last year or so really focusing on, state management is a new term for me. How are we doing on time, Doug?
Oh, good.
Doing okay?
Yeah, I don't have anyone after, so.
Okay.
Well,
state management is a new term for me, but just kind of getting in a headspace that is appropriate for the situation, if not optimal.
That's exactly what I teach, is how to do that, how to pick the appropriate state for the appropriate task at hand, or optimal, right? Like, say, you don't show up to, is it appropriate to be, full of confidence and all that? Yes. Maybe not, when you're on a date and you should be curious or compassionate, or, it's like sometimes we just, curious is a wonderful state to be in, but maybe not when you're going out to play a sport, or, it's like there's all these opportunities that we never kind of sift through and go, okay, what do I really want?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and people don't understand that the state comes first, not second.
Right. That's right. So it's not how are things going that determine how you should feel. If you come in with it's similar to attitude, right? If you come in with a positive attitude, this is going to be great, and you just keep looking at it like this is great, then it's probably going to be a lot better than if you come in going, this is not going to be great. This is going to be tough.
Well, here's what I can guarantee. If you say going into it, it's going to suck, it will. If you go in and say this is going to be great, it may not be as great as you would like, but it'll certainly be better than what you thought it could have been or the way it would have been had you gone in with this is going to suck. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I think that that your perspective on things and the how you I guess your state is really that's the right word for it. How you are at that moment, emotionally and physically, right?
Because they're directly tied.
Yeah, exactly. So if you come into a situation and you have calm, then you're going to probably be a little better prepared for anything than if you come into a situation and you have, anxiety and you're physically jittery or jumpy or full of adrenaline.
Which is back to the full circle to the perfect storm after a few months of people being locked up and then feeling pressure from all angles, right? Financially, emotionally, spiritually, just being cooped up.
Yeah.
It's almost like the pressure was there. So any crack that could have been put in there, that would have been the focus. Because I think there was probably a group of people who are also kind of going, wait a minute, why am I being locked up here? I don't know anybody. What's going on? Something doesn't make sense. And, the narrative starts getting questioned. Then numbers start actually coming in and going, so wait, those were the right questions all along? Like now and then people are starting to, then, right. And then all of a sudden, again, I'm not saying that there's anything nefarious, going on. It just perfect storm, boom, when it rains, it pours, and then another opportunity for explosion.
Well, in Michigan, we did have protests about that. There was I think it might've been the Michigan militia all strapped on their assault rifles and took over City Hall or the state capitol.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's not like there was nothing going on to begin with.
No, well, of course, I'm just saying the pressure, and so it was going to give somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that it would have been a lot bigger if there was going to be a release, right? That tea kettle was going to whistle one way or the other.
Right.
So, although I have to say that I think this is a good whistle that we're hearing right now. I don't know. I'm not 100% on board with everything that's going down, obviously, but.
Of course, I agree. I believe that the conversation clearly needed to be exposed.
Yeah.
And that is a positive. I wish that we could have it under more calm and compassionate spaces without all the charge. It's kind of like right now though. And it's like, I'm a typical guy. So like the fight, I guess there's a fight going on and I'm like already, when can we have the makeup sex? Like, I just want us to be done with and move on. Because like, it's, like, okay, I got it. Now let's start moving. Like, what can we do? Like, and that's where I think the challenge is right now, because no one really knows what to do. And because it's so divisive, it's triggering everybody, because the truth is, everybody has examples of oppression. Everybody has examples of pain. So as soon as the conversation starts, it becomes like a he said, she said, and like nobody's being heard.
Yeah.
Because it's like having an argument with your wife. Like, when's the appropriate time to also bring up maybe some of the challenges you've been having? It's not when she's telling you hers, right? But like...
Right.
And how often do we do that though? When she, when our wives will say, hey, X is bothering me, blah, blah, blah. And like, as a matter of fact, what's bothering me then, since we're going to go down there, and then all of a sudden, boom, like it just becomes the wrong time.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So I think that, something will get done as soon as there just needs to be a little more dialogue. And I think hopefully, I mean, this is a national conversation that has pretty much gone this way a couple times before, and nothing got done. So
yeah, well, I guess here's what and I'm not suggesting something or nothing did get done. This is actually a genuine question, and I ask with earnest. How would we know? How do we measure that? Because in my world, it's not really an issue. Obviously we all have some other than conscious biases and so forth, but it's never none of I don't hang out with people who, they're always inclusive. I've been in the personal development and music industry my entire life. I was working on rap records to pop records to there was never, music was the language. There was never an issue of race or anything that came into any conversation for us. We all made music together. And then personal development, very similar thing. So since I don't see a whole lot of it, I'm not exposed to it. My friends, my family, no one, I wouldn't know progress or not. And I don't know how we would measure it or not, because the truth is there's always going to be people who are disrespectful, who are assholes, who just are, and it may not have nothing to do with race. It just may be they're ignorant jerks.
I mean, certainly that's the case a lot. I don't know. I don't know how you know. I suppose that there are ways to measure some of the outcomes that you want to, some of the outcomes that you want for a group of people, but there's always there. I don't know that this is a problem that is, in quotes, solvable, but there are pieces of it that probably are.
Agreed. And I think that everybody has, skin in the game.
Yeah.
Because it's there are people who want to take action and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they're I want things to improve, but I don't know how we're going to measure it. What are the KPIs? So how do I know I'm doing the right thing? And then how do I know I'm not pissing somebody off? Because I don't know what to do. Now I'm in this, fight, flight, or freeze. And I'm I'm not going to do anything. Yeah. And then well, that's the problem. You didn't give me an actual solution.
Right. Well, there are, I don't know, I've seen a list of 5 demands, a list of 10, I've seen a list of 30, right? That of what some people have said, this is what we want. I mean,
I haven't seen those, and maybe you could tell me, are they measurable? And in what time frame?
Some of them are, well, they're almost all about law enforcement.
Well, some of those made total sense. There's
body cameras.
Yeah, that should be part of the gig. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So it should be part of the gig. So measurable. I think you'll know when they pass regulations and laws. Police need more training. Obviously, they're asked to do too much. There's no question they can't possibly be trained for everything they have to handle.
Well, and I think that it goes into now, back to, a whole other conversation versus bureaucracy and the efficiency and efficacy of a bureaucracy, the demands put on it, the way our system is, I believe should be term limits for everybody. This way, the work that's being done is to help the people who are going to be leaving office. So they're not worried about keeping their job. They're worried about how they're going to be treated when they leave. So the conversation might shift a little bit because they go, I should probably do this because, long-term, this is going to be better and I'm going to feel it. Not long-term, if I do this and halt this and fund that, and then there's no more money left because I'm making sure that I'm getting more money to get reelected because I got to continue doing my good. And then there you go. There goes some budget for training, or there goes, it's not, I think the challenge, as it's like a marketing, this is all marketing anyway. I'm sure you've noticed this whole conversation around COVID, BLM, everything is all marketing anyway. Is the idea that it's not as simple as take this pill and it solves everything. It's so complex. This whole, everything that we're dealing with, there's so many webs of conversation that have natural consequences, cause and effects that then impact each other. And people sometimes get myopic and going, okay, this and then that. Well, but that, you just handed that off to somebody else who doesn't know that you didn't know that if you handed it to them another way, they would have been able to then hand it off to this next person, because this is where it goes next, right? The workflow of life has gotten so compartmentalized.
Yeah. I mean, people don't tend in general. A person is smart. When you talk to a person, they tend to be pretty smart. If you talk to a group of people, when you get groupthink happening, all of a sudden the IQ goes way down and people start reacting in ways that don't make any sense at all. And so I think that I do think that there are some very valid points being made, and and some of the things that are happening are really just not American. It's not how we're supposed to be. And it's not how I want to be. I don't want to be associated with it. And I don't, it pisses me off. But if you're going to do something, you gotta put your thinking cap on, not your, shouting cap. Right.
Yeah. That's it. It's like, I don't want to equate this, and someone listening may get offended. It has a feeling of people in active addiction. They're not thinking, they're taking actions, and this is on both sides. This isn't on any side. It's when people get in that state, the thinking goes out the window. It's the same. The dopamine, the adrenaline, all of that messes with the way we think. And, it's like guys, like when they, they get turned on, right, by a woman, they do and say things they probably wouldn't do when they think there's an opportunity that they may, score, right? Well, how is this any different? We stop thinking when certain neurochemicals start flowing. And that's where, again, the state management, like, okay, whoa, hold on. What do we want, and what is the state we want to ultimately feel, right? If we want to feel inclusive, like as an example, when I'm in a spirited debate with a friend or whatever, if you and I are in an argument and but really what my goal is that we're like connected and, feeling like aligned, pointing out what's wrong is not going to get us there. Pointing out what, okay, here's what we could agree on, right? And we want this outcome. We may argue on how we get there, and that's fine. We can navigate that, but we have to agree on assume the best of each other, and then go, here's the outcome that we want. Now that we both agree that that's what we want, now let's talk about how we get there. We have different strategies, and those we're going to need to be flexible on anyway. And we need more of that. Unfortunately, it's harder to make happen because when everyone is in this heightened state of frustration and anger and whatever, everyone has the right to feel the way they want to feel. And, that's all. I'm not minimizing that. It's just their consequences from allowing that to continue. Agreed.
It's tough enough to have a conversation where two people have different points of views to try to find a common ground. But when you're already angry and adrenalized, and you already feel like, on one side, you've got people that are saying you have been unfair to me and to people like me, and it is an unjust for a very long time. And you've got the other side saying, you're accusing me of doing things that I'm not doing. Some other people may have done that, but I'm not doing it. So now you've got one person who feels attacked and and defensive, and the other person, well, they feel attacked too and angry. And how do you get those two points of view to have a conversation where they can both say, okay, you actually have something correct that I agree with to say? It's pretty tough.
Well, and because the challenge, I think, at this point is there's such an extreme that neither side, they've taken a position that any lean towards outside of the extreme goes to the other side.
Right.
Like
You're 100% with me or you're 100% against me.
Yeah. So there's no capitulation or compromise on either side. And then we continue down to have this path. And then when someone says, hey, like, let's just be humans. And they're like, yeah, you're not, you're my problem. Like, okay, can we all be Americans? America's the problem. It was based on, and like, well, okay. So here are the things we can't change. We're human and American, and those are the things you're telling us is wrong. How can we move into, like, what are we then? Like, if we can't agree that we're human and we can't agree that we're American, like, I don't know where to go from there, because like we're not even finding base similarities, and to want to even have that conversation, if that's challenging, then you go, okay, I don't know what to do.
Who even has the conversation?
Exactly. I don't know.
When you've got like one mob, at least I shouldn't say mob, but you've got a crowd, you've got hundreds of thousands of protesters. Which one of those people, because you can't have a group of people having this conversation, which one gets to have that conversation? I think that's probably a step that needs to happen first, is that they need to have, I mean, I don't want to speculate on who that might be, but I'm
well, but here's the thing, here's the challenge for anybody, is that if the representative isn't fully ensconced in the extreme position on either side, it's like a capitulation anyway, and then they lose faith.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so
that's right. Like, and then it doesn't count, because they weren't one of us anyways.
So like, it's going to take some time, I think, for people to just calm down, and it's like letting just not say time heals all wounds. Because like I posted a question the other day, and I'm like, what I'm noticing is, maybe if we change some of the questions, what questions would lead us to some form of healing? Let's just look at what are the questions we're habitually asking during all of this. And this was before I think it was during COVID, or no, it was just right when, I think it was when it first started with the new challenges. And someone messaged me, we don't need healing, we need change. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to I didn't get engaged, but like now we're talking semantics here, because healing by definition is change. So then what kind of change? Like, to what end? Like, I get you're frustrated and I get you're in pain, and I also want to help you. And I will gladly, if I've done something specifically that I can take responsibility for, I will. I'm trying to figure out what that is beyond just like trying to help people.
Yeah, I think that you and I maybe are not in a position where we can directly, we can't sign a document and make the change. All we can do is, I don't know, talk about it.
I guess, but even then I feel like not qualified anyway. Like I'm
not qualified.
Right? Like, well, okay, what do you like? And then back into that position where we can't even, we have to be able to come from in a place of calmness, confidence, love, compassion, empathy, and allow the space for that. And until that happens, I think we're going to continue in this frustration. And again, that's why it looks like addiction to me, because same would be true when someone is active in their addiction.
Yeah.
You can't talk. You can't, there's no talking at that point. Their mind is, myopically focused on drug of choice. And there's positive intent behind it. Again, it's not making the person wrong. It's just, right conversation, wrong time.
Yeah. And in that case, you just kind of got to let that person just settle down and then say, okay, can we talk about it now?
Right. And
we talk about this.
Easier. I mean, man, Heidi and I dealt with that with the family. We still do with the families, because we still have our family program. It's hard enough for them. and that whole situation. Now, when we extrapolate this into groups, which is, you know, a whole other mindset, like it's not apparent, different relationship.
Yeah. Someone has to show up with the kindness and the compassion and the empathy that you were talking about. Someone needs to show up. One of these two sides needs to show up with that. And it can't be the protesters. It won't. I mean, I just don't think that it's likely to be the protesters, because, and to be frank, no one will listen or care about them.
Not
if
right
they just
now.
sat down and kumbaya, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Nobody would care. The conversation would be about them blocking traffic, right? And so if the police show up with no batons, no guns, no mace, no tasers, no riot shields, what's going to happen? If they just show up and say, we're just here to talk, what's going to happen? Is the mob going to just blow them up?
Well, and there's a legitimate fear about that, but I understand, like, what is the answer? That vulnerability. The one thing I did see, and again, this is a nonpartisan statement. There was, I think it was the head of the New York BLM went to a Trump rally, and they were they were screaming and doing, and having their voices heard, and they were like, "Hey, come up on stage, and share your message to our group. We're here. Let's have a conversation about it." And it was beautiful. They went up, they talked, they spoke their mind. And there were a few people kind of going, get off the stage, whatever. But for the most part, people were like, okay, cool. Like, that was a conversation. And when they got off, people were going up to them and saying, thank you for sharing. And there was conversation going on. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not.
Because that would show that would show possibility. There, again, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but there are reports of some of the organizers telling people not to take selfies with the cops who are being nice, who are, kneeling with them, and who are, just kind of like, hey, I support you. Let's move forward. And like, don't take pictures with them. Don't put them on social media, because that gets in the way of the intensity of our messaging.
It does. It dilutes the message. It does. From a marketing perspective, they're right.
Unless you know your outcome.
Okay.
If the outcome is continue and divide and, make all cops bad, then yes, don't show any cops doing the things that we really are saying we want. If you want healing, if you want conversation, if you want retraining, you want policemen's buy-in. If that's what you want, is buy-in, then we should be promoting that more than the other. We
Agreed.
So that's where I think
positive reinforcement. Look at this good behavior. Let's give this. Let's recognize this. This is what we want. Can we get some more of this?
To show possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, as a marketer for treatment centers, you don't show only pictures of people overdosing.
We never do.
Right. You show pictures of people healing. You show pictures of people on, going, hey, now, is there going to be some challenges to get there? Yes. Do we want to avoid overdoses? Yes. Do we want to show awareness to it? Yes. But here's what's crazy. If all this was true and we really wanted to help people, Facebook would allow people to advertise from a problem solution perspective.
Yeah, it's funny that Facebook puts restrictions on who they think can advertise and who can't. Doug, I got to plug in my laptop. Hang on a second. I got to run around. I ran out of power.
Quality problem.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, it's weird that Facebook is saying, okay, well, we've determined that this cause is not worthy of advertising, and this other cause is.
Well, and it's also the way it's positioned, right? I remember when I would, in treatment being an example, one time for families, we had a picture of like a woman, her face was kind of distorted because it was one of those things where she was shaking it and it had the thing, and it was just like a face of like, oh, I'm losing my mind because I don't know which way to go kind of thing. And they were like, yeah, no, that's that image is too derogatory or upsetting or negative. We're not going to advertise. You know, you can't run that ad. I'm like, well, how does that violate standards? Because like, oh, we only want people to feel good. Like you can't advertise, you know, you can't say things like, you know, or, you know, do you have addiction in your family? Like,
yeah, I don't, I mean, Facebook can't win no matter what they do.
No, agreed.
You know, they're in an impossible position. And Twitter is now too, because they've grown large enough. So there's all these organizations that are in just in impossible positions.
Well, I appreciate taking responsibility and recognizing the responsibility you hold. And I get that. But here, this has become, you remember how you said earlier, you know, when you buy a car, you know, then you see them all over the place. The car, you know, it's called the RAS, reticular activator system, in our brains. Well, the Facebook algorithms are the same thing. So if you're engaging in negative content, if you're like, F this guy, screw that guy, this person, blah, 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 you know, and engaging in that kind of stuff that makes you feel that way, Facebook, the algorithms just go, oh, you want to see, I want you on here. So we're just going to make sure you see more of that in your feed. But if you're engaging in positive stuff, like I'm going to, you know, engage in this, oh, you know, cool, positive, whatever, you get more of that. The Facebook algorithms go, oh, you want more of that because they want you on the app as much as possible, get all their data. So it's interesting how we've got to mind our mind and where our focus is going and how much of that information we are then going to continue to get inundated by, which is then back to using the addiction analogy, right? Like if you or I got up every morning and the first thing we did was, you know, take a shot of vodka. And then as soon as we had a cup of coffee, while we were having the coffee, we were putting vodka in it. And then, you know, as we were sitting down for lunch, we were putting vodka in it. And then as soon as we finished with that, we'd have another shot of vodka. And then during the day, periodically, we would have our vodka during our snacks and then through dinner and then all that. And that was what we did all day. Would we assume that this person has a problem with vodka?
Well, absolutely, right?
Yet here we are every day. Wake up, first thing we do is look at our phone, check our social media, check our mail. Then when we go downstairs, have our coffee, we're checking our social media, checking what's going on. Now, I don't know if everybody does this, but a lot of people do. Then while they're driving, they're checking their media, they're checking what's going on, and they're on the, you know, on it as much as, but if you did that with alcohol, someone go, you're an alcoholic. But when someone does it on their phone, it's normal.
So there's a case to be made that we are all cyborgs now.
Well, we have a second brain.
Because of our phones.
Yep.
And although it's not attached, if you leave it at home,
go into withdrawal.
You get missing limb syndrome.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. It is, I mean, really, it will bother someone all day. So I totally hear what you're saying. Although I think that the phone is the beginning of something that is going to be a lot more than just the phone. It's going to be
without a doubt.
You know, yeah. So I don't, I think that I agree completely. Facebook is giving you what you want to see, right? You can complain that Facebook promotes negative stuff to you, but really what you should be saying is, boy, why do I love all this negative stuff so much?
Remember when targeting first became sort of available to people on a higher scale where people start to really understand what's happening and so forth? Well, two things. Number one, by the way, here's the other thing. You may not be looking for it on your phone, but if you're talking about it, it's listening and it's giving it to you anyway. But the other thing is some guy, I remember he posted on Facebook, he's like, since when did Facebook started advertising like, you know, Viagra or, you know, some other, you know, pornography or whatever.
Right.
And someone's like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you like, don't be telling us that, because all that is retargeting. You were looking at some porn or some other stuff on your browser and it's showing up on your advertisements.
Yeah, that's right. Because that's what you're interested in.
Right.
It's showing it. So now and the consumer needs to make this decision too. Would you rather have advertisements for products that, like, do you need to see products for feminine products? Do you need to see ads for that? You'll never consume that.
Right.
I'm making an assumption. So, right. Or would you rather see advertisements for things that you're interested in, that you might actually be like, that's sweet, I want to learn more? So, and
I don't think there's an argument to the value of the targeting by any stretch. I'm not suggesting that. It's just an awareness where that it's happening to us anyway, supply and demand, right? Like the news wouldn't be promoting all of this stuff if people weren't tuning in. They're measuring it. So we're feeding it. We are directly, and that's, I think, ultimately what I'd love us to get to is we are directly feeding the very beast we're resisting by engaging the way we are currently.
Yeah.
The style through which, and again, I'm not minimizing or suggesting that some of the challenges that are being brought up don't exist or minimizing them. I'm just suggesting right now, again, whether it's nefarious or not, the gaslighting that we are responsible for throwing the gas on because we're engaging in the very experience that allows it to propagate itself.
Yeah, it's like we make the decision, okay, do I want to be gaslighted to the right or to the left today? Which way will I go? Okay, I'm going to go MSNBC today, and I'm going to let them gaslight me. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to go Fox News. And then they can have their way.
And what's crazy, I do this. I put on both, and it's like they're two completely different universes. Yeah. They're not even talking about the same stuff.
No. Or it's as if they don't live in the same world at all.
Right.
When O'Reilly was on, I used to switch back and forth between Rachel Maddow and Bill O'Reilly.
And now it's Maddow and Hannity.
Yeah. It's funny because sometimes it'll be like the same general topic, but the way that they talk about it, neither of them are being genuine. Like, I mean, it's just, it's all
I
broken.
love watching, sometimes I'll put on The Five.
Yeah.
I think Greg Gutfeld is funny.
I knew you were going to say Greg Gutfeld.
Yeah, he's funny. But what I find so interesting, but it's all theater, because like they'll like present something, and it's almost like sometimes like have you ever like watched or experienced like debates for the sake of debating?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like basically like, okay, just pick a point of view, and like whether or not you believe in it doesn't matter. Just debate that side. It's like watching The Five. It's almost like they've got to have that dynamism, and some crazy thing will happen, and I don't care which side it is. They both come up with some crazy like opinion on either side. It's almost like it's obvious that it's like fabricated. Like, it's like, it's your job, Juan, to be on that side. And it's your job, Tyrus, to be on that side. And like, you're almost, and not to say they're inauthentic or disingenuous to such a degree. It's just that sometimes it just feels like, oh man, it's almost like they said, okay, here's the side you're going to pick today.
Yeah. Well, that's why they hired Juan, because they needed somebody on that side. Although he always tends to come off as the most reasonable to me. He seems like the nicest person on the show.
I think. Well, that's what's so interesting, and is that like I don't know any politicians, and I don't know like on either side. I don't know them, but I bet in person, most of them are really nice.
Yeah, I think that's their whole thing, right? Like that's what they do. They are nice.
But you see, but the way they're portrayed is like they're, and again, right or left doesn't matter. You got the Trump haters who go, he's this, narcissist, whatever. And by the way, I think anyone who wants to be in politics right now, and for the last 20 plus years, and especially now more than ever, you've got to have narcissistic tendencies to even think you could handle that job.
Right.
Like there's just, you got to screw loose just if you want that gig, knowing the scrutiny and the, you know, how there are going to be people. You got to have such thick skin, and you've got to have strategies to deal with it. Like, you're not normal. You're not the average everyday person, which is, again, why I believe there should be term limits, because I think people would be much kinder. And because, you know, I'm coming out, I wouldn't be, throwing arrows the way I would, because I know in 4 years, I'm going to be on the other end. Like, I'm going to be smart about this.
Yeah, I mean, that may be. Of course, they might just be like, okay, I'm going to make as many corrupt relationships as I can while I'm here so that I get paid when I get out.
That's possible, but you'd have far less time to make that happen. Yeah,
that's true. And when you have the same people kind of running the show, you're not going to have a lot of innovation.
Nope.
Right? You're not going to get a lot of innovation out of an 80-year-old. I'm just saying. It's probably not going to happen.
Well, and they surround themselves with yes people. So they're not even having someone go, excuse me, how about this? And like, I find that argument when someone, says, well, this person is best for the job because of all their years of experience. I'm going, that's the reason why they shouldn't have that job.
Right.
But then there you go. Here's the diametrically opposed opinions of someone believing that the experience is necessary, and other people going, no, the experience is actually a detriment. We got to find somewhere in the middle. And then that becomes critical thinking, which, when we're all heated, goes out the window.
Yeah, that's right. I wouldn't want to be in politics. I can tell you that. I mean, I love a good argument, but I wouldn't want to be, there's too much scrutiny and too much bureaucracy. It would be incredibly frustrating to me and this must happen all the time. They know that they have a better way. They know that there are problems to which they have a solution, and they absolutely cannot get it done. This is on both sides of the aisle.
Yep.
They cannot get it done because the bureaucracy and politics gets in the way. Just partisan politics. When you see something come through and the vote is down party lines, that just pisses me off.
Right.
Because that means that people didn't even think about it.
Right. And it'll give you a perfect example. And again, this isn't partisan, it's just fact. When the ACOA was passed, 1,800 pages. Well, we'll pass it, then we'll read it. Then we'll see what's in it.
Right.
Like, well, you admitted it. Like you just said, you actually just admitted that you are buying into bureaucratic baloney instead of using critical thinking and thinking this through and asking the right questions. What's the rush? Like, you're talking about a major, major overhaul of a situation that, but then again, one could argue that's exactly how he did COVID. Shut everything down. Well, whoa, hold on. There are other things to consider that you have already proven you don't have a plan for, which means you didn't consider it.
We're running out of stuff. I mean, just random things. We're just running out of things. The shelves at the stores are emptying out, and they're not getting replenished. I mean, not across the board, but I'm going to the stores now, and I'm seeing that there are empty spaces where there used to be products always. And it's not because demand has suddenly gone up. It's because the supply chain has completely broken down. I was listening to Elon Musk, who is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something that was very succinct, but also really true. If you don't make things, you're going to run out of them. So if you send everybody home, stop making whatever it is, eventually you're going to run out, and you're not going to have that thing anymore. Somebody's got to make it. It could be food. It could be cars. It could be coffee makers. But I need to send my coffee pot in to be repaired, but I can't because they're not working. So I'm out of coffee pots.
Oh boy, you gonna be okay?
I'm gonna be. Actually, I haven't drank coffee. I want to start drinking coffee again. I haven't drank coffee since January.
Oh man,
I gave it up. I went on a retreat and I gave it up in January, and then I never picked it back up again.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I want to. Now I'm like, I want some coffee. I'm sick of not drinking coffee.
Well, and yeah, I think that's where the idea of equality of outcome, the idea of ultimate fairness, that needs to be tempered with nature. Like, there are just things in life that have natural cause and effect. So you don't produce, you don't have, like,
Right.
common sense. But when people are all freaking out, they're not thinking. It's kind of, it's like, I don't know. I remember growing up and I was like, and again, I don't want anyone to equate that I'm putting anyone in this box. But when I was like 17 or 18 years old, I got my first credit card. And then when I got too much in debt, I had a case of the F-its, because I was like, well, what am I, I might as well just spend another, max it out at this point because I can't pay it off anyway. Screw it.
Yeah.
It has that feeling sometimes like that, like where people are just kind of like, well, it's already too far gone anyway, so screw it.
That is a sentiment that we're getting to with COVID.
Yeah.
Right. And where people are just like, okay, this COVID thing's been going on long enough. All the hype is, I'm over the hype, and just F it. I don't care. I'm going to go out. I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to take the risk because I'm sick of dealing with it. I was scared at first. The risk is now clearly defined. We know what it is, and I'm okay with it. And
I can't afford to stay home.
And I can't afford to stay home. Right. So,
so
I'm just going to be okay with the risk.
Which, by the way, is normal. We all run those risks. And I think what gets frustrating, I think, for some, and this is where I think some of other people get so frustrated, is like, don't treat me like an idiot. Like, I know the risks in hand. I wash my hands, I sterilize, I don't put myself in environments. I'm not going to be a complete idiot. And I know the risk. So I'm willing to take that on, especially since now the numbers are showing that it's not nearly as crazy. But other people are still taking that position of like, well, you're going to kill my grandmother if you go out and because you could contract it, you could give it to somebody else, we could give it to somebody else, we could give it to somebody else who could then end up inadvertently giving it to me, and I wouldn't know. Then I go see my 80-year-old grandma, and then they die.
Right.
Which would happen with the flu.
The risk of dying from COVID is the same. Like, the risk of a 75-year-old dying of COVID is the same as the risk of a 75-year-old dying because they're 75. Right? I mean, it's not like, I mean, to the 100 and some thousand people who have died from COVID over this year, it's clearly a very big deal, right? So to the families that are affected, it's a really big deal.
Absolutely. I don't think anyone's minimizing that. I think the question becomes is what do you do? Like, where do we draw the line? Because no one is giving that same amount of concern. More people die from overdoses than COVID, but you don't see
cigarettes, 500,000 a year from cigarettes.
Yeah. So, that's where I think people are going, okay, well, we're cool with that. But then why aren't we looking at this other stuff? Like,
yeah,
how come that's not important?
How many people die of diabetes?
And the argument is because those aren't contagious.
Okay. So there's got to be some happy medium between every man for himself.
Common sense.
And military state. There's some happy medium between you have to tell us when we can leave and when we have to stay home. And just every man, just like do whatever you want. There needs to be some guidance. But it's still America, right? It's still just because the environment has changed and now there's this wild bacteria on the loose or virus on the loose. We still should be able to, move about the country.
And again, I think like we shared earlier, all of this can be more gracefully and elegantly addressed when we get ourselves into a calm, peaceful, curious, compassionate state. Because nothing will get done from anger and fear.
Doug, I keep thinking it just, when you said fear, it made me remember back to when we did that thing at the Breakers. You did an event.
Yeah, the arrows in the glass.
Right?
Yeah.
The arrows in the glass, and they kicked us out because
that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great story.
But you talked in the beginning about fear and how trauma creates fear, and what you're actually afraid of is something in the past and doesn't exist in the future. I don't know. You just made me think about that, and it made me appreciate that entire event that you did. Have you been continuing to do that same type of event?
As much as possible. It's really hard to do over Zoom. I say, hey, go into your liquor cabinet, grab all your liquor bottles, drink them all, then break them, leave them on your floor and walk across them. Probably not, the best way to do it.
No.
But that diagram though, that I use, a little stick figure thing, I still do that as a training, as an introduction to this conversation, because that's how you re-traumatize yourself. You take the past, throw it into your future, you create a temporal bind, and now you're fight, flight, or fright, or freeze, right? Because you can't, your brain doesn't know the difference. So it responds the same way. So we get filled with all of that adrenaline, with all the, the cortisol and all those neurotransmitters and the biochemicals that actually put us physically in that state, which we don't know. That our brain then goes, oh, well, we're feeling it anyway.
Right. Danger must be real.
Yeah. Because I experience it. So when I turn on the news, and by the way, again, it's like a hologram. It's like the Matrix. Like, I feel like we're living in the Matrix half the time now, because we become lost. We get into a trance. Right? Have you ever had that in a movie, where you watch a movie and you just get so involved, you lose track of time, space, everything. You just get in. Well, it's a trance. Same is true with the news. We live it. We think it's real. And then because our bodies start getting all filled up, it becomes real for us. And then we could be so impassionate about whatever our position is on it, because we're experiencing it real time.
And the only thing we know about it is what we got from the news.
Right.
That's our only experience with the actual issue. Right?
And then references.
Right.
That we have past references, which, by the way, we could find references on either side, which is how people get brainwashed and they get sucked into one channel or another and can be told anything at that point, because confirmation bias is going to make it real.
That's right. Well, confirmation bias is a real thing. That's why I bounce around between news channels, because I want to hear the other side of the story. Now I find myself almost unable to watch most.
I tune in a little bit at night, like just before, not before I go to bed, but like I watch comedy if I'm going to watch anything, and then I plug in. I wear headphones when I sleep, and I'm listening to personal development, just plugging my brain with spiritual and personal development all night. But I'll do that flip, and it's comical.
Yeah, it really is. Well,
we've covered a lot.
Conversation. Yeah, we did cover a lot. I would love to come down and see you and show up at an event. You're still in West Palm?
Just south of that. Open door. You guys are welcome to come. And we don't have, for the whole brood, you'd have some air mattresses. We have the space, but we don't have, 5 extra bedrooms, but
right.
Or 4. But we have 2, so you're welcome to come anytime. Open door.
Wonderful. I'd love to do another event. The thing with the arrow, that's still, that was pretty intense. Like I did not expect it to break. Like I thought, okay, this is it. Goodbye, cruel world.
Well, see, that's a perfect example of why we do that. And the way I do it is to put you in a state so your brain is, dare I say, thinking it's going to be worse than it is.
Yeah.
I allow you to do that because I want you to have that experience that in life, we very often make things worse than they really are in our mind. And then so often when we break through whatever it is, whether it's building your business, whether it's, apologizing, whether it's asking for that date, whatever it is, that the story we tell is very often worse than the experience. So when you have that visceral experience and then you walk across a glass, you walk across a fire, you break the arrow, your brain goes, oh, what else have I been buying that may not be as bad as I think it's going to be?
Yeah. What else was I scared about that I shouldn't have been?
Yeah.
Yeah. What else did I put off doing because I dreaded it so much? And then when I actually got started doing it, it actually, I liked it, or it at least
Right.
wasn't bad. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what I'm hoping that will happen with all the craziness that's happening right now, that someone can just, both sides of the perceived argument can both come in and go, you're not so bad.
Yeah. I mean, they have to get to that place where they're like, you're not so bad. Cause right now they're like, you suck.
Right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, no one wants to hear it. Again, it comes back to our own confirmation bias. And oftentimes it's a reflection on how they feel about how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. More, and our own fears.
Right.
Right. Things that happened in the past, our traumas, as I kind of mature as a human, I realize that everyone has traumas, and that we're built by our experiences, and in large part traumatic experiences.
Well, if you think about it, for millions of years, until we had the last few hundred where we've had the conveniences of cars and electricity and all of that, we were battling nature. Like, it was survival. It was like we were being oppressed by the weather. We were being oppressed by everything. We didn't have nearly the amount of comfort that we've only recently had. So when people start talking about generational oppression, I'm not minimizing the existence of it. I'm just saying, as a human race, a few hundred years ago, survival was a different story.
Yeah, right. Right. It reminds me of the Croods, where the dad in the Croods his motto was never don't be afraid.
Right. So I don't know. I think we have, some institutional fears that have also maybe projected as well, that everyone is in some form of fear. And again, confirmation bias and references, not minimizing or saying, effed up stuff doesn't happen. It's just that I think that if we can all start celebrating what we share more and our similarities, because we're way more similar than we are different.
Yeah. Agreed. Hopefully they'll be able to find some common ground and get the right heads together to solve what's going on right now, because something does need to change, and we can't protest forever, just like we can't be locked down forever. These protests can't go on. If they go on for too long, people will stop caring, and then they'll lose the whole point is gone.
Right.
Kind of like Occupy Wall Street.
Right. Well, and I guess so. Sometimes, like when it comes to state management, sometimes some people will say like anger lights a fire for them. Like they use anger to motivate them. And while I don't believe that's always necessary, that there are other strategies, even if that person that I'm working with, that is true for them, living in the anger is not sustainable. Getting angry and maybe having that, and even if you're angry at yourself, okay, I got to do something. Okay, cool. You want to use that? Now the question is, how effective are you if you stay in that anger? It's one thing if it gets you to motivate, right? But then if you get pissed off, right? You're pissed off that maybe you're not selling as much. Like you're mad at yourself, and I got to get pissed off. I get pissed off that I'm not, as productive. Now you go on your sales call and you're still pissed.
Right. Right. Not the right time to be pissed off. It ain't gonna work.
Yeah. It's just, like, you're going to buy this from me. And be like, no, I don't think
you
so.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. You just lost the sale. Like,
yeah.
And that's where the temperance of wisdom and knowing your outcome and knowing by which we're going to measure it is going to be tantamount. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Agreed. Doug, let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? While we're ending up here, I put your website. What are some ways people can get in touch with you so that they can learn more about what you do and how to potentially do business with you?
I think the easiest way is to go to activemarketing.com and just pick up the phone and give us a call. And I'll be happy to talk to whomever anytime.
Excellent. Well, with that being said, thank you so much. I'll put that in the link. So in the YouTube and the podcast descriptions, that information will be there. I love you for who you are and who you aren't. And love to Carrie Poe, your family, everybody. And let's talk offline, because I think maybe, you know, with Heidi and I, with our family program, maybe your experience or maybe some opportunities that we could all win from, because, you know, we're ready to take that public.
Okay. I love it. Let's talk.
All right. I will book a call with you shortly.
Sounds good.
All right, brother.
Great talking to you.
You too, man.
See you, man.